Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about a fascinating and complex topic, the development of culture in Soviet Kazakhstan between 1950 and 1980. This period is often described as a time of both cultural achievement and contradiction, and I will try to explain why. Let's begin with the broader context. After World War II, Kazakhstan remained one of the key republics within the Soviet Union. The Soviet government was actively working to modernize and unify the different regions under one ideology, communism. Culture played a central role in this effort. It was seen not only as a tool for education and national pride, but also as a powerful means of ideological control. On the one hand, the 1950s to 1980s were a time of great cultural growth in Kazakhstan. The government invested heavily in building cultural infrastructure. Dozens of theaters, cinemas, libraries, and houses of culture were built across the republic. Even in rural areas, these institutions became centers for music, drama, dance, and literature. National artists were encouraged to create works that reflected the spirit of the Soviet people, while celebrating local traditions as long as they didn't contradict socialist values. One of the most significant achievements of this period was the development of Kazakh literature and arts. Writers such as Mukhtar Avezov, Sabit Mukhanov, and later Oljas Süleymanov gained recognition not only with Kazakhstan but across the Soviet Union. Avezov's novel The Part of the Abay became a symbol of Kazakhstan national literature, blending historical narrative with the Soviet vision of progress. In the field of music and performing arts, Kazakh culture also flourished. Folk instruments like the dombra were incorporated into state-sponsored ensembles, and traditional melodies were arranged in modern orchestral styles. National operas and ballets were created that told Kazakh stories using European formats, a process sometimes called Soviet modernization of national forms. Education played a major role in this cultural transformation. By the 1970s, literature in Kazakhstan was near universal. Many young Kazakhs were able to attend universities not only in Almaty, but also in Moscow or Leningrad. This led to rise of a new Kazakh intelligence, scientists, teachers, writers, and artists who were proud of their heritage but also deeply influenced by Soviet ideology. However, this period was not without contradictions. Also, the Soviet Union claimed to support the development of national cultures. It often imposed strict limits on what was allowed. Many cultural expressions that were seen as too nationalist, too religious, or too traditional were censored or discouraged.
For example, Islam, which had been an important part of Kazakh identity for centuries, was pushed out of public life. Mosques were closed, religious holidays were banned, and open religious practice was considered a threat to communist ideology. Instead, Soviet holidays and rituals such as May Day or Lenin's birthday were promoted as replacements. The Kazakh language also suffered. Russian became the dominant language in urban schools, government, and media. Many Kazakh families chose to raise their children in Russian to give them better opportunities. As a result, by the 1980s, there was growing concern that the Kazakh language was slowly disappearing from cities. There was also a growing sense of cultural alienation. Many Kazakh traditions such as nomadic heritage, oral storytelling, and traditional clothing were viewed by the authorities as backward or unsocialist. People were encouraged to adopt a more modern Soviet lifestyle, which often meant abandoning parts of their cultural identity. At the same time, the state promoted a friendship of peoples ideology where all ethnic groups in the USSR were supposed to live in harmony. In reality, however, Russification was a major trend. Russian culture was often treated as the standard, and local cultures had to adapt to fit within this framework. In conclusion, the culture development of Soviet Kazakhstan between 1950 and 1980 was both impressive and deeply conflicted. On the surface, it brought modernization, education, and international recognition. It gave Kazakh writers, artists, and intellectuals platform to share their work with the world. But at the same time, it came with the cost of assimilation, censorship, and the weakening of traditional values and language. Today, when we look back at this period, we see a complex legacy, one that continues to shape Kazakhstan's identity in the 21st century.